Okay. Let's just choose a smiley face emoji if you are more on the leadership, like the traditional leadership, what you imagine, the driver, the pusher, the fitness coach. And let's do a love heart emoji if you are more on the like mending, pastoral, love talking people from their problems through to health, that kind of stuff. Let's just throw your emojis up on the screen, and then here in the room, what are you? Are you more of a, hands up if you're in a, like, more of a leader, driver, fitness coach?
I'm different.
Ooh, Marlene said as of late, that's nice. What are you, now hands up if you're more the, like, get them to health, mend, hands up for those people, yeah, Renée. And then in the middle?
I would say in the middle, different.
More of a
Different
pastoring
situations.
side, but
That's what I was gonna say.
in the middle, but on the pastoring side of the middle.
Okay, yeah, I would say that. I would say that's fair. Knowing you, I think you're definitely that. Okay, so we got some smileys.
Oh, well, depends.
Okay, so I want you to, first of all, as you do this, I want you to think this first thing, okay? Our first principle, this is a bit again, not skill set today, it's back to Sunday's message, it's principle and values. Mm-hmm. The first thing I want you to consider is discernment. Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that is the hallmark of anyone that is in a position of overseeing biblically is that you have a loyalty not to you being liked, not to people feeling comfortable, but to leading people to more. And that health thing is still leading people to more, and the fitness coach is still leading them more. But if that is your actual number one goal, which we spoke about a few weeks ago, it's self-sacrifice, it's you're happy to not be liked because you've got to pick up the role of helping people get somewhere. I want to actually then talk about the concept of discernment. How do you know when to be what you need to be?
Right.
And I've always found something fascinating was having a conversation with my father-in-law, and he was just saying one of the things that he's often thought about was that Jesus would have walked through the earth and seen every realm all the time. Like he would have had eyes to see the supernatural, see things differently, and he just references how he'd heal and he would just be able to see whether it was a demon or what it was or just all the things. And I thought, man, that is so fascinating, and it opened up my thought to, you know, the idea that the Bible says that Jesus was meek and mild, and you see that, right? Like in that he was so not out there trying to start a revolt against the Pharisees or Rome, but at the same time, this meek Jesus also flipped the tables in the temple, and zeal consumed him.
Right.
You know what I mean? The same meek Jesus did a very non-meek statement of being on a cross. So it made me think, wow, Jesus was obviously just so attuned and discerning of what every intention was. Rich young ruler comes up to him, good teacher, and he goes, why do you call me good? Right? Very much showing his divinity, because the same way that God answered the devil when he came in to test him on Job, already saying, where have you been? So I've been roaming. And then he gives the answer of the devil's intent by saying, have you thought of my servant Job? So he's just all-knowing. And I think if we are going to lead as Jesus, I would ask, do your nerves, your insecurities, your propensities, or your comforts sacrifice and push discernment to the back end of your leadership?
That's good.
Because you lead from what you know, you lead from your propensities, you lead from your fears, you lead from your comforts. Do you just autopilot leadership, or are you discerning in the full spectrum of what we're really talking about today, which is, hey, sometimes somebody needs bandages, sometimes somebody needs care, and sometimes somebody needs push.
Yeah.
And years ago I did a staff and I just said, a good leader knows when to push and pull. Like you need to know when to push the troops forward,
That's good.
and you also need to know when to pull them back. You need to know when to push for more, and you also need to know when you got to pull back and rest or consolidate. And discernment is the first thing that I think as a leader you need to develop. Because if in your head you've got phrases like, I need to lead more like Gio. I need to lead more like a strong leader. I need to lead more like Bill Jones. I need to lean more like Bill Jones would be a great sense because he really leans in a moment. Also does Xavier Durant. I don't know that you're discerning as much as you're trying to overlay
That's good.
what someone else is good at.
That's good.
And I would say that you're partially discerning, that there's a gift that needs to be present, but you're also not fully trusting that what you're discerning is something that you could feel. This is why I'm kind of saying, say the thing.
Yeah.
Because most of the time when I meet with a leader, when I take you out of the context that you are leading in and you feel free and safe to be honest, you're often not wrong. I would say that maybe 78% of my leadership advice is kind of bringing out in the person what they already see. And only like, I don't know, 22% would be like giving them something they don't see. Most of the time, people are discerning it. Consider this, you got the Holy Spirit.
Right.
Consider this, like like God has put you in a position and He wants to grace you for it.
Yeah.
But are you willing to live to the appointment that God wants to actually release you to? Can you discern when it's moments to be kind, to pull back? Do you, like, I think there's one thing about loving your personality and there's also something about limiting your growth because you embrace too much of your personality. People maybe have celebrated you on this call for being a sharpshooter, and that's got its merit. But if all you do is sharpshoot, I promise you, you're leaving growth on the table. And maybe people have praised you for being caring, but if all you are is caring, you're actually going to leave growth on the table. I'm just saying that if you're going to be a biblical shepherd, a biblical leader,
That's good.
you've got to actually get good at both, and you must discern the two.
That's good.
And you must discern, and I think one of the biggest keys to being a great discerner is getting to the mountaintop and spending time with God. And this is why.
Right.
Distance increases discernment. When you get distant from the thing you lead and get close to the one leading you, you start to increase in discernment because you're leveraging something more than your eyes and more than your ears. You're learning God's prompting. You're learning God's vision for the thing you lead. And one of the most important things I think is getting away a little more often at the beginning of your week, end of your days, beginning of the month, year, quarter, all those things, and getting before God. And this is why humanity's propensity is to overcorrect at every turn. We always do it.
Yeah.
We typically run super fast in the opposite direction of what we've done wrong. So if you've got, and this is going to hit home, I know this because obviously I pastor a lot of you, and we talk about this on a daily. When you've gone through a season of a lot of people not liking your leadership and talking about, let's say you're too harsh, you'll inevitably fall into a season of being too soft. And then somewhere in between, you land in the middle through experience of soft and harsh. And you just learn the two, right? And the reason is that what happens? Well, it's painful to hear that you're being too much of something. You're still human even though you're a leader. We honestly, and this is a values thing too, we put unspoken desires and expectations as leaders to be followed, but never do we put expectations, goals even, to be rejected. I want to put this out there. Do you have Jesus-like goals if your goal is only to be accepted and followed?
Right.
Because Jesus was rejected, He even said that He didn't come to bring peace, like that He came to put a daughter against mother-in-law, or whatever,
Yeah.
father, and like that whole thing. Like, there is a black and white standard, if you will, that Jesus was more willing to uphold
Yeah.
Yes.
than hold together
So right.
the masses.
Yeah.
Right.
So good.
And I want to just make sure your values as a leader in People Church is that you are not simply looking to be followed, but you also know that you are a great leader when you're also rejected.
Yeah, that's good.
Because if you're a friend to everybody, you're essentially a friend to nobody.
That's great.
And I even think that, honestly, there comes a point where you could be a friend to everybody, but you've got to even pick a side with friends.
That's good.
And that doesn't mean you stop the relationship, but you have to choose which friend is right sometimes.
That's good.
Yeah.
And we live in this society that likes to ride the fence. The problem is, eventually you will fall, and it's painful.
Yeah.
And we have to, as a leader, understand that we probably have too much telling us subliminally that it is good to be followed. How big is your social media following? How many people have liked it? How many people are in your group? How many people have not complained about you? You're not a Yelp review. You're a leader.
It's good.
Yeah.
And I think it has been my experience that good leadership is like good art. It's always celebrated after the fact.
Right.
Good leadership is never appreciated in the moment, because what is it doing? It is iron sharpening iron. It is molding. It is shaping. It is chipping. It is Jesus talking to Paul, and it's hard to kick against the goads, the prodding stick. A shepherd by nature had both a stick with a hook. Like, there is just a nature to this that is not always comfortable. So if it's not always comfortable, is the goal then to be harsh sometimes? No, that's where you fall apart. The goal is to be biblical.
That's it.
Right.
And if you are biblical, let the Bible do the prodding.
Yeah, that's so good.
It's good.
You just hold the prod.
Right. Come on.
And if you're going to be a good leader and all you want to do is be liked, that's not going to always work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's good.
Sometimes being a good leader is saying something true and harsh,
Yeah.
letting them walk away with dignity,
Yep.
Yeah.
in parentheses explained, with dignity being this. If I speak to Courtney and I say, hey, she goes, man, I think this, that, and the other, and I'm like, I don't think that's God, and she's like, I do. Okay, well, you know where I stand. I love you.
Yeah.
Whenever it's time, you just know this. I can't wait for you to do that church in Wisconsin. But if that doesn't work, we're here. And you can come back whenever you want. That is allowing somebody to walk away with dignity.
Yeah.
I was true to what my job is as leader. I
Right.
don't think that's the standard.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to over get into this. I'm not going to preach about Courtney. I'm not going to preach about any of those things, so
Right.
that the day may come where Courtney is ready to come home.
Right.
She would rather come home, because why? There wasn't too big of a fight between us.
Yes.
There wasn't a crazy, like, you're wrong, this is that, this, no. It's like, okay, I've said what I've said.
Yeah.
You're going to do what you're going to do. You've already made your mind up. It's a waste of my time to speak any further on the subject. But you've always got a place to come home.
Yes. Great.
Also, I want to put this out there. If you're going to be rejected, you also got to understand that you're willing to get it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even, that's something that I've got in some areas. Isn't it funny how a truth can touch one area of your life and not every area of your life? We're so funnily compartmentalized as humans. I'm so happy to go on the journey of getting it wrong in so many areas, but I wasn't and haven't been on the area of speaking. And so even this podcast, I was like, I just had a shift of heart. And I was like, I don't know if it's going to be good, the first one. But I think if I had enough chances, I probably could make it good. And it was the journey of getting to big instead of arriving at big. The journey at arriving at influence. The journey of arriving at impactful. The journey of arriving at quality.
Right.
Is all the things that I'm talking about. But what if you didn't have to just be a finished product, but a product in the works?
That's so good.
Which means I don't want you to then go away and go, well, I'm being rejected pretty often. This is pretty Jesus-like. Because you're also going to ask the question, on what premise am I being rejected? Am I being rejected on a Bible truth?
Wow.
Or am I being rejected on an executional problem of that truth?
That's good.
Did I execute my advice poorly? Did I execute my leadership poorly? Or am I being rejected on simply a Bible truth that I've executed in love, care, and compassion? Well done. That is a good rejection. Because you honestly should keep tally of the people who love you, and the people who dislike you, and the people who hate you. And the right people should hate you, the right people should dislike you, and the right people should love you. I think most people have an imbalance in that area. The wrong people love them, the wrong people hate them, and the wrong people dislike them.
Wow.
If you disagree with me and your life has none of the values I see in the Word, that's a compliment.
Right.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because yes, we don't think the same.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you don't like my leadership but you treat people poorly, thank you. You've complimented my leadership, not ever brought conjecture to
Come
it.
on. Come on.
Because we don't stand on the same stuff.
Right.
Right.
Come on.
And I think one of the best things you can consider is, are you liked by the wrong people?
It's really good.
So I say all this because I think discerning is going to, you have to first remove the roadblocks to discernment. A lot of you have discernment, but if you've got all these other things that we just spoke about, clouding your ability to deliver said discernment, the discernment is useless. It's almost like having knowledge, but doing nothing with it. It's like knowing which investment's going to skyrocket on Wall Street, but putting no money on it. Well, cool, you know, but you did nothing with it. And I think quite often we hold that for so many people and so much of the leadership we hold. We have great discernment, but it's clouded by a lot of the things that we've put the merit of good leadership on. Some of us have also thought, I want to put one more out there before I get to the second thing, and it is, I want you to shift from, oh, I'm just the pastor. And I want you to shift from, oh, I'm just a strong leader. And I want you to think, how can I round off now those things? You might have a predominant gifting in one leaning or the other, and that is brilliant, God designed, needed by the church, and all those things. However, whilst I'm not a believer that you need to turn your weaknesses to strengths, I do think you need to round off the sharp edges of your weaknesses.
Yeah, that's good.
Like I recently was cutting some metal to make my Simi at home, my screen. And look, I'm not a metal worker. No one's going to be praising me on the way I put that thing together. Like no one's going to be going, wow Chris, it's a Da Vinci of metal cutting. But one thing I did do was like, I better just take this grinder and just like round off some of these sharp edges because I don't want anyone to get cut. Like, it's not a work of art, but it's not going to bring my project down. I don't need your weaknesses, and I don't think anybody would agree that your weaknesses must be turned into strengths, because that would mean that you were just trying to reach like perfect in a silly way.
Right.
I think your strengths were there for a reason. They fit the profile that God wants to push you in. They fit the role that you're meant to play. But if you do not cap your weaknesses, they will be your undoing.
Yeah, that's good. Man, come on. Yeah.
I once heard a great message called boom and bust. That your strengths will provide boom and they'll also provide bust. If you don't use, and this is what the message came from, was Ecclesiastes. It's not too good to be this and it's not too good to be that. What is he talking about in Ecclesiastes? He's talking about extremes. And what navigates extremes? Wisdom. Wisdom, I heard this footballer say yesterday, and it's something we've all heard before. Wisdom, knowledge is knowing that tomatoes are a fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to put them in a fruit salad.
Yeah.
So, wisdom is knowing what to apply when. It's discernment. I want to encourage you that wisdom is usually held captive by consequence. I won't instill this wisdom because I don't like the outcome that might come with it. So, discernment, I think, is something that if you are true to speaking, if you've got the values that you are there to lead, you're going to be able to discern when it's time to actually, love someone, care for them, and when it's time to push them. And honestly, experience, the Holy Spirit, and the Bible are what really will teach you this. There are some moments where I've stood in front of people crying that I lead, and sometimes they need a hug, and sometimes they need a push. I know you're crying, but there's no time for tears right now. Because what you need is growth. It is your lack of growth that is causing pain.
Wow.
You have basically stood still so long that things are hurting you.
Yeah, that's good.
And there's other times where I'm like, this is not about growth. You need care. You need love. You need a hug. You need to talk through some things. You need to patch up some wounds. We need to do some triage. You're not ready to run on the battlefield right now, and you're not on the walk-on team. Right now, you need a bench. You need to just chill. Knowing the difference and learning from when you got it wrong, because this is a journey, will make you better. I haven't arrived at getting it right all the time, but I keep a log mentally of when I've got it wrong, when I've got it right, and I create a new level of kind of understanding of when I should apply what. The second major concept I wanted to bring today, which is a different way of thinking, and we kind of touched on it, it's tangentially connected, it's definition. Hopefully today what we're learning is we're trying to change our definition of biblical leadership. Right? It is being Jesus. It's knowing like when to be harsh with a rich young ruler and when to bend down and basically get the crowd off the back of the woman that was about to get stoned. It's just knowing when somebody's asking you something with ill intent and knowing when someone needed a moment of teaching.
Yeah.
It's that sense of like, it's just this great, so by defining that, how would it change the way you lead? By giving it a new definition, does it give you new goals? Does it give you new outcomes? If you give it a new definition, it should change what you celebrate, and it should change what you actually think is a loss. The goal is, do you have, and have you taken the thoughtful time to write a definition that is good, biblical, applicable leadership? I want you to take this series away that we're doing, and I want you to not just process it by yourself, but process it by those that have watched you lead.
That's good.
Let them talk to you about what you do well. Ask them if you do the caring well. Ask them if you do the pushing well. Honestly, I would say this, you're going to get mixed reviews because people aren't all the same and they don't get led the same way. I wouldn't sit there and say that if you get a unanimous theme, the theme's preaching to you.
Right.
But I would expect that you're going to get some people that you're nailing it and other people that are going to feel like, man, you're not doing that. And the reason is they're different people. You know what I mean? So I want you to consider the way you define leadership. I want you to consider what you define as wins. And I want you to communicate that with the people around you, the people above you, and ask how you could get better at that. And start to pick up that kind of sense of how you lead. And then just make sure you define it new for you. Write it down. Process it. Think about what you want to be as a leader and shift it. I'll finish with this before I open up the questions. My most powerful changing moment in my leadership was a moment where we had a couple leaving the church, and they were just kind of, it was very emotional. They just went in on things that were like neither here nor there, but it was just like, it was very kind of, it was on the front foot attacking kind of thing. And I did the wrong thing by getting defensive and like just meeting them and rebutting everything they said. It just didn't go well. It looked like something that we came from. And Odds and I were lying in bed and she just said, man, Chris, I don't think you did that right. And I was like, I don't think I did either. And that's when God just literally just started grabbing me. It was like Odds disappeared for a second. It just felt like he grabbed me and he was like, Chris, is that the way that good leadership's done? I go, no. He's like, is the merit of a good leader to be right all the time? I said, no. He goes, then what do you think it is? And I was like,
Wow.
to be able to elevate the best idea in the room, to be the quickest to say sorry, and to, whether the idea is mine or someone else's, is just be loyal to the best, not mine or theirs or whatever. And that shifted so much for me, because I was under this place where I kept hearing, that's good leadership, that's good leadership, that's bad leadership, that's bad leadership, that's good leadership. So the definition between the two made me, through my own brokenness, it turned leadership into performative.
Right.
And it meant that good leadership, and I always heard this, that's smart, that was smart, that's smart. So it was very much about good leadership is being the most strategic, the smartest, and the best at what you do.
So good.
And so, like, when then I realized that that's not good leadership, because that's not what the role of a leader is. You're not there to be the smartest, you're there to, you're just, honestly, you're a quarterback, setting people up for their wins, getting them over the touchline, like that's what you're there for. If you can get them in the end zone, like that's what you do. You know what I mean? You're a support role, and when you play your role well, everybody flourishes around you, and that's your goal, right? So when I shifted that, it's funny how I went into meetings and I was able to be both strong and soft at the same time. Because I knew my heart was in, well, what's the best idea? So you had to convince me, but I was open to being convinced. I was like, okay, well, if I'm wrong, talk to me about that framework. Let's see how that works. Yeah, you're right about that. I didn't do that well, but this is what I also think. I became more true to what's true than being liked or being strong or being whatever. When that definition of leadership changed for me, my leadership followed quickly. Because if you shift your values, your actions follow suit. If you just try to shift your actions without shifting your values, nothing changes. You are basically at war with yourself all the time. I want you to create a sustainable biblical model of leadership that is within, this is the capping of it, within your gifting set. Stay within your gifting set. Know what you're gifted at and define leadership biblically, sustainably, out of the gifts that you hold. Some people, man, I got a guy in my other grow group, he's just the best at turning the most awkward or difficult things to wins. He'll just talk to people, he's got a way. It's a gift. Mel, I think, has a way of saying hard things in ways that people love her for it. My mother-in-law has that gift. You know what I mean? She's harsh and people go, they love her more. Audrey has that gift, you know? And then you've got other people that have just, Xavier has this gift of helping people understand things. It's just a gift. So, know the tools God gave you, work within those tools, define a better way of leading.
It's really good.
And let's say the thing. Okay? The whole goal here is say the thing. Say it. Say what you see. Say what you, if it's respectful, loving, and you're open to being wrong about it, it's only going to lead to growth. If more leaders were honest, more followers would be bigger, and they'd grow, and they'd be happier. All right, we won't do the full 12 minutes of questions, but we've got some time for questions if there are any. If not, we'll close out and you get 12 minutes of your life back. But if you're wondering how this works, if you've got questions on it, throw it over, ask it, and we'll go.
I have a question.
Yes.
Hey, this is really good. I've been studying leadership and difficult conversations and how to have a healthy conflict resolve. So I'm curious, let's say if you have someone that you're leading and you're addressing different things, maybe you're giving them feedback at different points or instruction at different points, and you sense at some point, or you discern that there may be a deeper root of maybe offense or pride or hurt, maybe just a deeper root that's affecting how they respond or receive that feedback or instruction. If you see that consistently, how do you address the root to help that person?
Great question. So that's where I do those development sessions that I spoke about. And why I do development sessions is because it's a moment to dive deeper. I see my role as leader, I think of it this, I have a result and it's my responsibility to get that result. If getting that result means that I give you direction, so be it. If it means that in the process of giving you direction there are roadblocks that are hindering that direction, then I'll go in and help you remove those roadblocks. If there are roots that are becoming roadblocks, I'll organize a session and I'll go, hey, can I just talk? I might be wrong, but this is what I'm feeling, okay? I've noticed when we talk, this rises. If I'm misinterpreting it, please explain what this is, how you see it. I'm just talking to how I see it. The only reason I bring it up is I just want your help. I want your help getting you to your next best day. I want your help to get you to be the leader that I see you to be. And right now, as I see it, whether misinterpreted or not, this is in the way. And then I let them talk. And we go in. And if you've got enough wins on the board and you've built the relationship well, because we can talk about I have a systematic way that I would build a relationship, getting it ready for that kind of feedback. But yeah, I think you got to remove the roadblock. And that's where that great shepherding, pastoring dynamic comes in. You're not just expecting results without getting your hands dirty and helping the person get healthier.
Okay, thank you.
And then Alicia, yes, I agreed. I apologized, Alden and I apologized, and then 2 years later, they actually had a conversation with us and said they wanted to come back to People Church, but they were part of another church and they didn't get released by their pastors. Their pastors felt like that's where they needed to be. And so, yeah, that's how it went. But it was very redeeming to see that come back. And I think something that we have a lot in People Church is we have a lot of people that come home.
Yeah.
A lot of people come back. Over the years, it's been like a theme. Many people that leave come back, and I think that's a really cool thing. All right, any last questions? It's gone a little quiet. Maybe we're done. 30 seconds if there's no questions. Oh, Brianna, forward.
Follow-up question. I think I heard when you answered Shayla's question that you have like a system of developing relationships to get to that point of that level of feedback. Like, could you just share a little bit more about what's that look like?
Yep. So the first thing I do is I start off with building some rapport and knowing about the person and getting into their world. The second thing I do once I'm going to assume the role of leader and they're going to follow is I'll have a conversation and set. So this is in a grow group setting, I'll do this a lot. In a pastoral setting, I'll do this a lot. It's actually something I could do in the work environment a bit more. But like what I'll do is like, hey, so I'd love to have you in my grow group, but if I'm to be your leader, and I do this at Growth Track, this is part of my language at Growth Track, I'm setting expectations basically. Hey, if I'm going to be your leader, I hope you're okay with growth conversations. I hope you're okay with me being honest, because I see myself as a potential friend, but I prioritize being your pastor and leader over being your friend. Yeah. That is something that friend happens out of maturity. Yeah. Pastor and leader is what happens out of priority. When I get to heaven, that's what I have to answer for more than anything. Right. So think about it, go away, whatever, but if this is to be your grow group, I just want you to know we're going to have some conversations, I'll bring things up, right? And then I try to build and put just money in the bank of collateral, of like equity. I keep trying to, whether showing up for them, investing, speaking life, being there, time, proximity, and encouragement. And then when I give feedback, it usually comes with encouragement, then feedback, then encouragement, or I thank them, or I try to make sure that if I can't do it in that meeting in particular that way, I want to make sure that if they were to look back at the tone of our relationship, that I've been there for them in their darkest moments, I've been there for them when they've lost family or when they've had a bad week, that I'm always there. And that way, when it does come to those conversations that are tougher, they at least maybe should know that I do love them, I am invested in them, and that this is not personal, it's literally just growth.
Yeah.
And then I think that for me has been my process. I always set up the rapport, set up the expectation and platform I'm going to lead from, and then make sure I'm always making a good balance of deposits before I make withdrawals.